Good morning, everyone, and it's good to see you and or your names on the Zoom screen. And uh, apologies for the problem with Zoom this morning. And wouldn't you know that it would be this poem that that is um, the subject uh, today on a day when we're having technical difficulties. Um, so let me say this is a poem I have loved for many years and been very interested in and curious about, and I have learned a number of things about it um, just after I decided that we would that we would talk about it today. And maybe I'll just mention in advance that um, I have seen versions of this poem that were all in one stanza with no stanza break,
Huh.
just in couplets all the way through. I have seen, I think, most anthologies print a version of this poem that has neither the opening nor the closing stanza. And you know, I am not a John Clare scholar, and I actually don't know what he originally intended. Hi, John. Hi, Gina. And so, in fact, if anyone has any information about that, I would be very welcome to hear it and learn a little more about it. There are also a number of word changes from this version to there's a version in the big Norton anthology of poetry that has that the word demure in this poem, which is one of the odder words in the poem, is they print a version in which the word is demute, which I had to look up, and which and has to do with being very small, not not mute, but the dim as in diminution or minute. So I don't know if this is even the most authoritative version of the poem that exists. Oh, Bill, do you have your hand up? No.
No, I don't. Sorry.
Okay. No, I um uh
Lloyd,
anyway, Bill, yes.
the other
The
Bill.
other
Can I
Bill.
ask? Do you know what the date of the poem is? Do you know when he wrote it?
Well, it's in the the date that's in the Norton anthology is 1835 to 37.
So he was already hospitalized.
He yes, well, or had been hospitalized, was out of the hospital, uh, certainly went back in and spent something like 3 decades. His last 3 decades were in a mental hospital.
Jeez.
So he was a very troubled person. He also had 6 children. Um, I don't know whether that has anything to do with anything. Um, but clearly a very troubled person, or a person who was sort of in and out of being troubled, and then finally um it reminds it's reminded me of a contemporary of his in the music world, Robert Schumann,
Hmm.
who also was very was someone who was very troubled. But anyway, that's a little bit of background. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Jim.
Oh,
Thanks for uh, wading through the the technical complications of the morning. Um, so let me read the poem, and in what I believe is its most complete version, if 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 not its most authoritative version, because I don't know what is the most authoritative version. The Badger by John Clare. The badger grunting on his woodland track, with shaggy hide and sharp nose scrowed with black, roots in the bushes and the woods, and makes a great high burrow in the ferns and brakes. With nose on ground, he runs an awkward pace, and anything will beat him in the race. The shepherd's dog will run him to his den, followed and hooted by the dogs and men. The woodman, when the hunting comes about, goes round at night to stop the foxes out, and hurrying through the bushes to the chin, bra- and hurrying through the bushes to the chin, breaks the old holes and tumbles headlong in. When midnight comes, a host of dogs and men go out and track the badger to his den, and put a sack within the hole, and lie till the old grunting badger passes by. He comes and hears they let the strongest loose. The old fox hears the noise and drops the goose. The poacher shoots and hurries from the cry, and the old hare, half wounded, buzzes by. They get a fork they get a forked stick to bear him down, and clap the dogs and take him to the town, and bait him all the day with many dogs, and laugh and shout and fright the scampering hogs. He runs along and bites at all he meets. They shout and hollow down the noisy streets. He turns about to face the loud uproar, and drives the rebels to their very door. The frequent stone is hurled where'er they go. When badgers fight, then everyone's a foe. The dogs are clapped and urged to join the fray. The badger turns and drives them all away. Though scarcely half as big, demure and small, he fights with dogs for bones and beats them all. The heavy mastiff, savage in the fray, lies down and licks his feet and turns away. The bulldog knows his match and waxes cold. The badger grins and never leaves his hold. He drives the crowd and follows at their heels and bites them through. The drunkard swears and reels. The frighted women take the boys away. The blackguard laughs and hurries on the fray. He tries to reach the woods, an awkward race, but sticks and cudgels quickly stop the chase. He turns again and drives the noisy crowd and beats the many dogs in noises loud. He drives away and beats them every one, and then they loose them all and set them on. He falls as dead and kicked by boys and men, then starts and grins and drives the crowd again, till kicked and torn and beaten out he lies, and leaves his hold and cackles, groans, and dies. Some keep a baited badger tame as hog, and tame him till he follows like the dog. They urge him on like dogs and show fair play. He beats and scarcely wounded goes away. Lapped up as if asleep, he scorns to fly and seizes any dog that ventures nigh. Clapped like a dog, he never bites the men, but worries dogs and hurries to his den. They let him out and turn a harrow down, and there he fights, and there he fights the host of all the town. He licks the patting hand and tries to play, and never tries to bite or run away, and runs away from the noise in hollow trees, burnt by the boys to get a swarm of bees. So, as I said before, I don't know whether the first and last stanza are Clare's ultimate intention for the poem. When I read it for the first time years and years ago, it was without those stanzas. And also I I tried to do a little research, and I looked in my old big fat anthology romantic of romanticism, which was the textbook that I used in my undergraduate course on romanticism. And John Clare isn't even in that book. So that was in the 60s. And he seemed to be, even in the 1960s, he seemed to be a totally unknown and irrelevant figure. And now he's much more highly regarded and regarded as more important. So what was your experience of reading this? I'm so curious to know
I
what you made of this poem.
think Bill Bennett had his hand
Oh,
raised.
please, good.
Just to say that there are a couple or several readings of the poem on YouTube, and
Oh, hmm.
and they um, they aren't even consistent with the lines within the stanzas. So one of them has the first stanza, but not all of the lines. So whatever
Wow.
the canonical version is, it's not on YouTube.
Yeah, wow. No, it didn't even occur to me to do that. Yeah, but thank you. But what's your feeling about the poem, Bill? Do you want to
Oh,
do
and
you want to say
Robin Becker raised her.
Robin? Okay, Robin. Yeah,
Like you, Lloyd, I knew this poem years ago, but only the middle three stanzas.
right.
Um, it opened with I'm on a Zoom, I can't talk. Um, I only knew those middle three stanzas,
Right.
and I was always kind of struck by the um the rhymed couplets and the regularity set against the awful violence and cruelty of the poem. And they always seem to be deliberate and intentional, as if to say that this is just normal life, routine cruelty in the course of village life. Um, and it's primarily the violence is primarily done by men, but the women seem to be perfectly at home with it as well
Yeah.
as the boys who are going to grow up to torment other badgers. So there's a for me there's always a horrible sense of inevitable cruelty and passed on from one generation to the
Yeah.
next with a kind of calm acceptance and so I'm surprised by that last stanza, which I had never seen until you sent the poem around.
I
Um,
Hmm.
so I don't really know what to make of the last stanza. I'm curious to know what other people think of the last stanza.
Me too. Nick.
Yes, well, I think the last stanza is the final culmination of the Badgers' defeat. The domestic animals
Mm.
in the earlier uh, stanzas are all being chased and totally submissive to the badger. At the end, the badger is being turned into a domestic pet,
Pat.
and its courage, its bravery, everything has been taken from it. It's a complete collapse of the badger's courage and bravery, and it has nothing left. It truly is now dead. Physically, it was dead in the previous lines, but now it is really dead because the essence of the badger is gone.
Yeah.
I think Ginny wanted to add to that as well.
Great.
Yes, in terms of the fifth stanza, it's not the same badger, but this is the first time the badger is used with a badger as opposed to
Oh.
the. And I feel that the gives a little personality to the badger, but now it's just a badger. It has lost something with
Yeah.
that use of the a.
Yeah. Yeah. Joyce.
I was interested in the couplets and the tone at the beginning. I felt the author seemed, well, I wondered what his point of view was. He seemed kind of jeering of the badger, not exactly sympathetic, which I wanted to expect. Sometimes you feel sympathy for the fox being chased in these hunts around villages and with horses, etc. And then by the end, I thought he wanted to take a different point of view, trying to give the badger another chance, or to try to show how absolutely hopeless the situation was that he would ever fit in to this village life, that domestication would be just take away whatever we might have admired about him or whatever enjoyment he might have gotten out of life. So the last two lines really struck me when he runs away from the noise and hollow trees, whatever that would be. Well, I guess that would be the bees living who hive in the trees, burnt by the boys to get a swarm of bees. So he runs away from this conflict. He won't have a chance to get the honey. He won't have a chance to enjoy this. And I thought that was a deprivation that, well, I don't know, it gave me a lot to think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stephen and
and
then
and
Mike. Oh,
and I was just going to say, and the badger isn't the only victim of these village kids who are kind of grow up being just kind of knee-jerk cruelty to whatever badgers or bees or whatever uh they they feel superior to. Stephen, Stephen?
Oh, sorry. Um, I was not happy with the last stanza only because
Mhm.
it seemed like well, everything from the form, the heroic couplets, it seemed like this was like a hero journey in a way for the Badger, and his strength and his determination is being celebrated, and he's got some personality, whereas the rest is always depicted as a mass. The people are just faceless people. He has personality. So for him to die that heroic death in the penultimate stanza felt fitting to me. But if the meaning of the poem or the intention of the poem is to show us various ways, society becomes cruel to that individual, and maybe Claire is even projecting a little bit too, then I understand the reason for that last one to show subjugation and to show how even the fiercest spirit gets cowed. But I'd rather it end, if it were mine, I'd end with his death. I'd end with
Well,
him fighting back and have him die.
if you were editing a poetry anthology and were going to include this poem, would you include that last stanza?
Yes, because only because it exists, my assumption is that other turn is part of Claire's idea that he's saying, as somebody said eloquently, there's one death, and I saw that as somewhat noble, but that's not even the worst death. The worst death is when they turn him into something he's not. I couldn't help by that time seeing the Badger as representative. Before I was watching it, like a lot of Claire's poems, I'm watching just nature. But then by the last poem, I can't help but thinking about human nature and wondering which types of humans are treated that way as well.
Mm,
Thank you. Yeah.
mm.
Mike, Mike, you have your hand up. Mike Steffen.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So,
Hi.
reading the poem, I thought about a painting at the MF, Franz Snyder's Boar Hunt. It's in the second
Hmm.
floor in the main gallery, where all these hounds are setting on this boar. And it occurred to me, it sort of merged with Jean de La Fontaine, who decides to start using animals and fables because it becomes very dangerous to start talking about powerful people at that time. And I've seen readings where the absence of the human subject is implying powers at their utmost. I don't know enough about Claire's political situation. I don't know that a poet interested in the human heart and its relation in society, why you go so off on the badger hunt uh, purely as a badger hunt. And I couldn't help but reading the poem as an allegory for a terribly powerful personality among this group, whether the personality were elevated or actually some type of rogue, whether we're talking about somebody famous or infamous,
Hmm.
it seems to draw that line in that everybody is the foe of this person, or this badger, but this badger is indomitable. So, I mean, it's a very curious angle to take the thing as fable, but it is worked to such an extent I could hardly see it otherwise. I've seen documentaries about badgers, and they are very persistent and formidable animals in themselves. But the Clare poem, I was reading along the lines of fable, and artistic reticence, and an artist protecting themselves when wanting to talk about powers that be that are turning against the voices of society, which, so that's how I saw it.
I
Two
wonder
cents.
I wonder where you got that idea from.
I don't know. I, I don't.
Well,
Thank you. John, you have your hand up.
Yeah, a couple of things. My first response to reading the poem was to be ashamed to be human, to realize I really could be one of these people who do this to anyone else. And second thing is, I really like the last stanza because it encapsulates the history of humanity how people in power have always abused those beneath them, or how people of power again have abused all indigenous peoples. And so it just shows very clearly what we as humans do to other people. And it's terrifying. It's really terrifying.
Any other comments?
Question.
Oh, Susan, yeah.
Yeah. Could I don't know this poet. Could you say more about his other work? Is this pretty much how he constructs poems?
No, he is a formalist, and there's one other sort of anthology poem called I Am. It's very late and very poignant, about, just it's a very short poem.
So does the meter and construction of this contribute? How does it contribute to the subject matter?
Yeah, anyone want to talk about that? Meredith, you have your hand up, but I don't know whether you want to respond to that question. There you are.
Hi, sorry.
Hi.
No, I had some different questions and points.
Okay, well, shall we get back to
I
that
do-
and just talk for a moment about the form of this poem? Robin, I think you actually said something about it in your opening remarks. Do you want to pursue that a little bit?
Yeah, the formal regularity, the metrical regularity, and the rhyming couplets to me create a kind of map uh,
Hmm.
that suggests broad cultural normalcy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the ground on which he sets up his people and his animals. And that's the kind of, for me, that's the reading template for the whole story.
Yeah.
That this is normal, this is regular, this is within the bounds of a conventional social and cultural realm. And there's nothing experimental or unique in any kind of formal way about it.
It's the form is really very old-fashioned. For 1830s,
Yeah.
none of the other major poets are writing in couplets. But for 100 years before that, in the previous century, everyone was writing in couplets. That was the standard form. So there's something kind of oddly, I don't know, regressive about the choice of form. But
Okay.
Denise, do you want to?
I want to comment.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to comment on the form. My son Dan was a classics scholar at one point,
Oh.
and saw in the heroic couplets echoes of something like the Iliad, because it is a extremely dispassionate description of a battle and death and gore.
Mm-hmm.
And that lack of sentimentality I have seen in other poems by John Clare. There's a wonderful one called The Gypsies.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
that ends, and thus they live a picture to the place. And he's described all their poverty and how they live out of doors and how vulnerable they are. And thus they live, 'tis thus they live a picture to the place, a quiet, pilfering, unprotected race. And you could see that as condemning them, but you could also see it as his own empathy for the very poor, for the laboring, because he was a farm laborer and he felt that
Right.
very deeply as a kind of, I think, psychic wound and struggle, that he was a farm laborer and yet he was a brilliant poet. And which one was he? And this kind of tore his psyche apart. Anyway, it's not sentimental, but I don't think it lacks sympathy.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think that's really one of the great things about this poem is that your one the reader's attitude toward the subject, toward the badger, is so complicated because the poet's attitude is complicated, and the creature is both heroic and also nasty, and neither side of that is downplayed in the poem.
One more thing, you see a little of an echo of this attitude about the badger in The Wind in the Willows, where he's feared by the other animals. He's also admired and respected. He's very grouchy and
Cocaine.
hermetic, and he's also wise.
Uh-huh. Right. Oh yeah, that's great. That's a wonderful reference. Denise, you've been waiting.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't claim to have read a lot of John Clare, but I very much like his poems about animals, and he does use form, but usually a shorter form
Mhm.
is my recollection. And I think some of his animal poems are sonnet length, but made up of couplets. But he also does formal sonnets. But one of the things I like, sorry,
No, I was just
one
gonna
of the,
just a postscript to your comment is that all but one of these stanzas are 14 lines.
No, 2 or 12.
Yeah, I just counted them.
Mm.
3,
You're right. Two
two or 12,
12, and
and the
the
rest
others
are
are 14.
14. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Uh,
Go on. Sorry to interrupt.
but what I like about the animal poems is a sort of melancholy tenderness mixed with an unsentimental view of of the lives of animals, excuse me, their surroundings and their way of living in their surroundings. And one thing that struck me when I read it, one of Claire's poems is about disturbing the nest of a mouse when he's walking through a field.
Hmm.
And it made me think of, the other farm laborer poet of great renown, Robert Burns, whose poem about the mouse is so affectionate. But Claire's poem about the mouse starts off with a feeling of revulsion, which anyway, it was an interesting contrast. And there's a poem, one of his poems is about a mole, seems to express a lot of affection for the mole. Not so much the hedgehog. Anyway, they're really, I find them very touching, these poems, because the feelings are so exposed, despite the form of the poem, and the sort of the the graceful flow of the rhymes. The emotions are quite complex and unguarded in a way. But also the description of these places of mud and standing water and the underneath hedges. It shows that he knows these places well and understands them and appreciates them, but doesn't prettify them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those are just some random thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. Gina. I can't
No,
hear you.
we can't hear you, Gina.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Gina,
Lloyd,
did you
Lloyd,
maybe?
Yeah.
tell Gina to put it in the chat. At least we could read it out.
Okay. Is she still there?
Yep, she's
He is
here.
here.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
if
there
you
you are.
can,
Oh, you've just moved.
and maybe mute yourself because there's some feedback too. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Would it be any use to log out and log in again, or is this just sort of your current situation?
You can try either way, Gina, because I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. Okay. It seems to only happen with this group. Oh no. That's terrible. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It could be related to our problems today, but Gina, stick with us, please, because I would love to hear what you have to say.
I want to ask, do you have favorite passages in this poem? For me, there really are things that kind of that seem very sort of special to me. That I mean, I love the whole poem, but part of what I love about it are these uh, some really kind of wonderful details. And Meredith, uh, okay, it just went by too fast for me. Any thought? Oh, yeah, Ginny, hi.
Hi. I don't really have favorite lines. I found the language very rich throughout, but I do love when the badger grins. He grins a couple of times, and I like that. And it partly as I read through, I was wondering, is this badger being anthropomorphized? And the grin was a little bit of that for me. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if we usually say that animals grin. And the demure that was strange in terms of the anthropomorphizing. It's hard to imagine this animal being demure, but I like the lines with grin,
Yeah.
basically.
And as I say, demure is how it's usually printed, but in the Norton anthology, it's a completely different. The word is demute,
Yeah.
and which is just an image of size.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like this badger is in any way demure.
Yeah, I don't. I I would guess that the meaning of that word has changed.
Oh, okay.
An old Bill. Yeah, do you want to just say what you put in the chat, because I I have a hard time with the chat.
Yeah, just that an older use of the word is more like sober or reserved.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Um, I, the one of the words that's repeated is grunting,
Mm.
and which is at some level anthropomorphic
Mm.
and vivid. It's just it's a terrific word. Um, and they're just wonderful things. It seems to me on that level in the poem. Uh, the other thing is, and I think maybe Bill, you talked about this earlier, but it's the image of village life and countryside, which is not exactly the main focus, but it's a village in which hogs are running around in the streets. And
Lloyd, I think Susan and
oh,
Robin and actually
okay. Oh,
Jonathan.
great.
So there's a bunch of people who'd love to
Okay, great.
add.
Please.
Susan, go ahead.
Susan, yeah.
Yes, I know nothing about badgers, never even gave it a thought. But this line about when badgers fight, then everyone's a foe, got me sort of curious. So I I looked up a little, and evidently badger fighting was a sport in the 19th century, like cockfighting.
Yeah.
And so there was some new information. I'll never use the word again in the same way to say
Yeah.
that.
Um yeah, that was
I think Robin and then
and Robin. Yeah.
Jonathan,
Okay, Robin and then Jonathan.
then Michael.
When you said that, Lloyd, I couldn't help but think it hung a grunting weight,
Do you want to
which is, of course, from the Elizabeth Bishop poem, The Fish.
Ah,
yeah, well, yeah.
It hung a grunting
A
weight.
grunting weight. Yeah. Thank you for that reminder. Jonathan.
Hi, yeah, I'm coming to this poem in a state of complete ignorance. I'd literally never heard of John Clare.
I haven't.
And I am struggling in some cases with the narrative. Um, there are animals that appear, and I'm not sure if it's another word for the badger or if it's somebody else who has come into the story. Especially the second stanza. There's an old hare, there's a goose, there's an old fox, there's a poacher, and some of these I realize must be the badger, but
No, I don't think
No.
so.
no.
Hmm.
No, I think it's just what's going on.
Mhm.
Um and
Random.
and those are I think those are for me those are some of my favorite passages in the poem that um um so the townspeople are hunting the badger to get the badger out of his den and into the town where they can torment him
Ah,
and kill him.
Sport.
So what, but this in this second stanza, there's, as I understand it, there are these other things that are going on. So while this badger hunt is going on, the old fox, it's just some old fox in the woods,
uh-huh.
and he has a half dead or dead goose in his teeth, and the fox is going to get out of the way, and he drops the goose, which I think is very funny.
Uh-huh.
Um, the poacher shoots and hurries from so the poacher is not there legally, and he's hunting whatever he's hunting. But when he hears, there's this whole group of people hunting the badger, the poacher wants, he's going to get out of the way. He's going to
That's very helpful.
disappear. He's going to disappear. And the old hare. So the poacher has, I think, shot a rabbit, and the rabbit is wounded, but he's going to get the hell out of there too. He's going to avoid this fray. And
That's great. It was
okay.
None of that was
Okay.
obvious to me, but I understand
good.
that.
Good. I hope that's helpful. Mike, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the very stanza you just went through with Jonathan, and just the sort of summary is that anything else, and this is dramatic if we're talking about a parable, anything else ceases to matter. All the little stuff, the fox and the goose, the poacher and the hare, they just cease to matter. And it all becomes a one-man show, even though it's everybody against the one man. Like all other problems, all other things that a community might be working for, everything gets dropped because of one that one show, So the badger becomes all, but it was exactly that stanza that I was going to talk about.
Yeah. Stephen, yeah, thank you.
I was going to ask you to read. So Gina has a printed voice, not a visual, out loud voice. Would you read her long comment?
Do you see it? I don't see it. So.
Oh, you don't?
Oh, is that it? Is that in the chat?
In the chat. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I read the poem.
I see. This. Oh, okay. Why don't you read it? I'm
okay.
Not seeing the screen very well.
She made a reference I thought was interesting.
Please.
She said, I read the poem for the first time this week, and I read the poem simply as a straight narrative of scenes, presentations almost of brutality, of the exploitation of the badger. And I loved exploitation.
Yeah.
It was hard to read, like a horror movie, with hints from the first stanza of brutal horror to come. Hearing Lloyd read it this morning, Robinson's When Richard Cory Comes came immediately to mind. Its final brutality, the musicality and elegance containing the augur of horror, the augur and horror of signal horror. And then she gives you the Richard Cory poem. So I thought it's worth checking out in that way too and seeing the parallel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Gina, for taking the trouble to type that.
You know what? I might add to that. I mean, I don't know the Richard Cory poem, but I felt a lot of similar with what Gina was saying. The horror of it and the brutality of it were really striking. And yeah.
You might discover that you actually know the Richard Cory poem, because
right.
It's something that I had to read in elementary school, I think, really, and that it was in high school anthologies, and it was a pretty famous poem for a very long time, well into the 20th century. And I'm not sure people are reading it these days, but Bill, and then Bill Symes.
Oh, I should go first. Well, yeah. I wanted to pick up on 2 or 3 points you made. With regard to the couplets, they don't seem to be entirely uniformly dexterous. There are 1 or 2 maladroit moments, aren't there? If one just sticks to the first stanza, for example, followed and hooted by the dogs and men. Hooted isn't really transitive, so can't quite be utilized in that way, and then goes round at night to stop the foxes out. To stop out, it's not really a phrasal verb I'm very familiar with. Do those not seem slightly inept moments?
Well, I actually looked up because I didn't understand to stop the foxes out.
Ah, okay.
And it's a phrase.
Oh, is it?
And it's old. Um, According to what I can't even remember what on if I just Googled to stop the foxes out, and it's an expression
Okay.
that means sort of, it's kind of doing busy work.
Oh, okay, I see. In which
It
case I
has
may have.
nothing to do with foxes,
Ah, all
with the
right.
animal.
Okay, I
And
see.
because I couldn't make sense of it. And I finally, resorted to Google, and it turns out that it's an actual kind of obsolete phrase.
Oh, I thought he'd kind of coined a not particularly clear phrasal verb for the sake of supplying the couplet rhyme, but I may have done him a disservice in thinking that.
Possible, yeah. Because there is also, I would add, there is a kind of colloquial element to this. It's the couplets are so formal, and we call them heroic couplets, but there's something else going on in the poem that's just, I don't know, they get a forked stick to beat him down, and I think it's a forked is two syllables in this line.
For the sake of sustaining the iambs.
Yes, right. And clap the dogs and take him to the town. And clap the dogs, I think, is just kind of, it's some sort of petting them.
Oh, okay, yes, yes.
And bait him all the day with many dogs, and laugh and shout and fright the scampering hogs. So, and this, I don't know, this village scene, it kind of reminds me of Bruegel.
Yes, that's right. Yes, but it doesn't. We go astray, don't we, in imputing to Clare any kind of moral censoriousness or judgmentalism. He seems just to be reflecting the nature of town life. And although we, I suppose, think of bear baiting and badger baiting, which I didn't know was a thing until this poem, as rather sadistic, nasty activities, I'm not sure that he sanctions us to indulge those feelings as we respond to the poem. He seems, I think, mostly accepting of it and non-judgmental. Every now and again, you'll get a word like blackguard, which seems to be laden with moral meaning, but mostly he's just reflective of it and accepting of it, and we are guilty of a kind of, I don't know, anachronistic narcissism if we project onto the poem a sort of compassionate attitude towards animals. The other thing I suppose I like about the poem is that, and this I think relates to your recollection of a romantic anthology which didn't even feature Clare, is that he seems to me to stand apart from the other romantics in being less vulnerable to mystical moments. He doesn't sort of move from nature to the supernatural and the mystical and the mysterious. He seems to keep his eye focused on village life, and in this case, the spectacle of badger baiting. And that, I think, is a welcome absence, as it were. You know, sometimes in Wordsworth one can yawn and sigh a little when
yes,
something is transformed into a moment freighted with supernatural meaning. I suppose in relation to that, I too like the comic moments. I like the comic moment in the first stanza when someone is walking, you know, with bushes up to their chin and suddenly drops down a badger and tumbles headlong in.
Falls into a badger hole.
Yes, and he seems to sort of, I suppose like Bruegel, he just seems to delight in the vitality of it all, just the energetic sort of engagement in various activities of various folk. And it's as if the sheer exhilaration of watching people up to their antics precludes any kind of moralizing.
Yeah. Although I think he finds it appalling too.
Okay.
I think
maybe
that's also there. I think it's in that it's in the poem, and that the you know, picked and torn and beaten out he lies, and leaves his hold and cackles, groans and dies. That's such a, I mean, there's a lot going on in those lines, and some of it is this the feelings are change with every word in that
I think yes, but I suppose I would have been more accurate if I'd said that moments of pathos of that kind are never allowed to become too prolonged or sustained.
Bill, and then Denise. Bill Bennett.
Well, partly I can only echo what the better Bill has said, that that blood sport has been very much a part of English life. There are still English people who object to outlawing fox hunting, and fox hunting was a big thing then. So partly the poem could be read almost as a comic peasant version of what's the organized redcoat fox hunt. And it's also interesting that badgers and foxes share burrows. Nobody quite knows why.
Really?
But the fox is very present in this poem.
Yeah.
And they would have been around hanging out together. That's true of European badgers anyway. But it could be read almost in a sort of Shakespearean way as the rude mechanics sort of mocking with a kind of neutrality on Claire's part as to how good or bad this is. It's just what they do. Excuse me.
A moral neutrality. But I think there's an emotional kind of roller coaster in this poem where we're looking on with fascination and horror and sympathy and just having lots of that. The images are so powerful that we're pulled into the poem without making the moral judgments.
Right. And if one reads it with I am, there's a kind of attitude that flesh is horrifying and one wants to be somewhere else.
Denise, thank you.
It's a small thing, but when you were saying they get a forked stick to beat him down, I read that as bear him down, and I pictured the badger
to bear him down,
upside down and bound by the wrists and ankles to be carried down to the village.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I just misread it if I misread it. Who was it? I can't remember who mentioned the line, and to me it's um I need to um um I need to um uh when bad sorry, it's in the third stanza. um the frequent stone is hurled, which has a kind of, I don't know, to me that has a kind of mock Alexander Pope syntax. The passive voice, I mean, it's hardly a passive action, but he's, it's clearly he's doing it to keep the iambic rhythm.
It's
But
like a male politician. Mistakes were made.
exactly. That's exactly right. When the frequent stone is, or the stone becomes the subject,
Yes.
which is really strange. The frequent stone is hurled where'er they go. So they're really the whole group of townspeople are throwing stones at the badger. And then I think, actually, if I had to pick the greatest line in the poem, it would be the next line, or the moral of the poem. When badgers fight, then everyone's a foe.
Yeah.
And to me, that's really the center of the poem, and that it's both awful and there's some element of sympathy, because everyone is fighting the badger. Everyone is tormenting the badger.
It partly means that, Lloyd, doesn't it? But doesn't it? I mean, it could mean, it could have the inflection you're imparting to it, but it could also be a comment on the indiscriminate nature with which badgers engage in fighting. They are incapable of identifying the ones who are most adversarial or antagonistic to them. They lash out, as it were, at everyone. So it's on the it does certainly bear your meaning that everyone is equally horrible to the badger, but it also seems as if it's imputing a characteristic to the badger in its way of waging war.
Yeah. Nick.
Because actually, that is the nature of the badger. That is what badgers, how they stay alive. They're fierce fighters. They're protecting themselves. This isn't a sort of judgment on the badger. It's a literal description of how, unlike a possum, for example, as an actual opposite, they have a mechanism built in that they appear dead, and they eject a horrendous odor from their rear end. Just the opposite. So that's often made as a contrast in two similar looking animals, even though biologically they're different. The badger, this is his means of self-protection. He's a vicious animal, and that is how they've stayed alive for quite a few million years or whatever it is.
Yeah. Wow.
Can I go back to the previous line you called attention to for a moment? I mean, when you spoke about the odd use of the passive voice, the frequent stone is hurled, was your point that this is part and parcel of Clare's eschewal of censoriousness? He doesn't condemn the village folk as the active voice would have, or were you rather saying that it's so conspicuously a gesture of exculpation and whitewashing as to become almost the reverse of that?
Yeah, I think personally, I'm somewhere in between
Okay.
that, and I think there is a sort of deliberate mockery of the Pope heroic style, and that he's read that. He's read Pope and he's read Dryden, and that there's a kind of it's just a sort of throwaway, but it's a throwaway probably necessitated by uh it just moves the iambic rhythm a little better than they hurl the frequent stone, which doesn't seem to me an improvement. Um, but but that but that there is something odd about the passive voice, and that the frequent stone is hurled. I mean, it just he seems to be to my ear, it's kind of mocking the heroic stanza, the heroic couplet of the previous century.
But also, to Meredith's point, Pope did translate the Iliad.
Yes.
In couplets.
In couplets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah.
And everyone would have read, every writer certainly would have read Pope.
And there's a battle scene here that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's absolutely right. But it's also aware that I think Clare is aware that this is a village scene. It's not Troy. That this is down the street, and it's going on probably as he's writing this poem. There's some kind of bear baiting or badger baiting or fox hunt or whatever it is. I mean, the thing about the fox hunt and the sort of parody of the fox hunt is what was so confusing to me about the line about to stop the foxes out. And I thought, oh, that must be some sort of fox hunting term. And then it turns out, so I thought, oh, I'll look it up, because it's probably it will explain what that is. And then it turns out it has nothing to do with fox hunting. It was just a kind of colloquialism. One line that I don't understand, that I haven't been able to figure out, and if you have any ideas about it, you can help me. And that's near the end of the poem. Clapped like a dog, he never bites the men, but worries dogs and hurries to his den. They let him out and turn a harrow down, and there he fights the host of all the town. I don't understand turn a harrow down. I mean, I am assuming that harrow here refers to a farm implement, but I just don't understand what's going on at that moment. Anyone have any ideas? Robin.
I think it creates a cage in which they fight.
Oh, good. That makes sense. Great. Thank you. Joyce.
I thought he might have, well, I'm using my imagination, but I thought he might have been implying that they were following a trough in a field. They turned, there was a trough in the field created by the harrow machine or whatever they are, a rake or something. And
Right.
And they let him out, but they were sort of guiding his escape. That's kind of what I thought. But I looked it up and I couldn't find anything about Harrow to support my view. So
Okay. But
The harrow breaks up clumps of dirt, I think.
yeah,
right.
So I
and it
don't
kind of creates rows, maybe. But
yeah, but thank you for 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 this.
I think it was used to create an obstacle like a temporary fence because it's a curved, forked thing that you drag through the ground.
Right.
And if you park it with the teeth down, and then you can create an enclosure. At first I thought it was like a cage, but I don't think it's big enough for the badger and the other animals. So I think they just created a ring for the fight.
Oh. Okay. Good. Thank you. I have to say that last stanza, which is really sort of new to me, I think from a slightly different angle preserves that duality of tone, that there is some, I don't know, as I read it, there's something that the badger still has this element of ferocity, but that there's also something poignant about the badger becoming a pet, and that it's not just a defeat. And I think that's that element that so many of you have felt in this last stanza. I wouldn't disagree with you at all. I think it's there, but I think that stanza is also has some of the duality, continues some of the duality of tone, of having opposite feelings of sympathy and horror and even, a kind of grudging, and I think grudging admiration for the badger, but also this also a sense of genuine dislike and a mixture of sympathy and not sympathy. And I think that continues, for me, that continues in the last stanza. And I myself don't read it saying, oh, this is the ultimate defeat of the badger, but that the badger is actually capable of being domesticated to a certain extent. And there's something very poignant about this creature who is so vicious, maybe heroic, but also vicious in the earlier part of the poem, that he's also capable of being tamed and, I don't know, humanized or something that makes me think it's not horrible what we what we what we do, or it's not merely horrible what we do to tame the badger, but that the badger is not just tamed but also civilized in some way. So I mean, I don't want to, it's a very complicated issue, and but in terms of the badger um, itself, it remains complicated through the end, and that it's finally these kids in the town that are destroying a place for bees, and that human beings don't come off all that well in this poem either. um, um, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like you've enjoyed reading this poem or getting to know this poem. I'm not surprised that it's new to most of you. But it is a poem that I've always had a great affection for and admiration for. And Claire is such an odd figure who is Denise. I am impressed with how much Claire you've read, and thank you for that. And I guess we should let Marita.
Oh, wait, one more second. I know Robin and
Oh,
has had her hand raised for a little bit, so I'd like
thank you.
what she
Yeah,
has to
please.
say, but yeah, thank you.
Robin?
Oh, Robin, you're muted.
I wanted to follow up on what you said, Lloyd, and look at the verbs that apply to the men and that apply to the dogs in the last stanza. For example, I'm looking at keep, tame, urge. Those are the ones applied to men, and the ones applied to the badger are beats, seizes, and fights.
And
There's
fight.
also beats, seizes, and fights. There's also worries
Licks.
and licks.
But also licks.
Yeah, so I'm seeing that ambivalence that you're talking about in the tone by including licks and never tries to bite or run away, but then and runs away.
And runs away.
Right.
Right. Yeah, Bill.
I got a different Google reading of Stop the Foxes Out. Which was that it was a practice to go around and stop up the holes of the fox burrows in preparation for a fox hunt the next day.
Wow.
So,
yeah, Google failed me on that.
Well, who knows? But beating my horse that
no, but
that there's a fox hunt badger.
I'm assuming that the Google definition that I found has to have what you found as a sort of source. I mean, why foxes if it didn't have anything to do with foxes? But I couldn't find that myself. So thank you. That
popped up. I'm otherwise ignorant, but it popped up.
Oh yes. We could tell.
Thank you, Lloyd. This has been.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I after our rough little technical start, thank you all for. Oh, Catherine.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say thank you to you and to everyone, and to Marita especially.
And to Marita especially, yes.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you for figuring out how to get this to happen today.
And thank you all for being so patient, and really the conversation was really engaging, and this is a complicated poem, and I appreciate having you all here. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. Enjoy the day.